this thing that's going around called Nazara and Jazara, Jazara and Nazara. The creditor of Washington, D.C., this is the people that have given Washington, D.C., Australia, South Africa, Africa, Iceland, whichever country it is the people that have given these credit, their people's credit to Washington, D.C., okay, or Australia, from the landmass of Tara Australis has given credit to Australia. The Americans have given credit to Washington, D.C. The people living in the landmass of Canada, which is that's not its correct name, have given credit to its de facto corporate government. Okay? In other words, the people are the creditors. If the people are the creditors, who is the debtor? It's Australia, it's the Commonwealth, and which, Canada's part of that. The Americans are the creditors, and therefore these corporations need to pay back those credits. You understand that?
Yes.
So with the same level of trickery, what the governments do and the corporations, they create words like Jusara and Nazara and say, hey, general public, we should forgive people's debts, as in, our Father which art in heaven, give our debtors as we forgive. You understand the phrase? What they're doing is they're hypnotizing you and the general public to forgive Washington, D.C., Australia, the Corporation of Canada, the Corporation of South Africa, because that's a corporation, South Africa, the forgiveness of debt. They are getting the general public to say, why don't you say that debts should be forgiven? By saying so, you have wiped out our debt, the corporate debt, the Washington, D.C. debt, the Australia debt, from ever going back to the people. And they create words like Jazara and Nazara, which is the forgiveness of debt. But who has the debt? Is it the people or is it the corporations?
Corporation.
And is it the government? So that's the hypnosis. Now, in this country, in the 1970s, a particular character called Richard Branson came up with a way of doing this in the Jubilee in the 70s. And that is, he created a middle-class rock band group, okay, called the Sex Pistols. And that Sex Pistols were middle class, not homeless or cockneys or common people. No, they were middle class people living in mansions in swimming pools, pretending to be homeless. They created an entire myth around them. And they got this song to be sung at the point of the Jubilee. The Jubilee is the forgiveness of debt. It's the forgiveness of the debt. So the Crown is asking for their debt to be forgiven from the general public, so the Queen, as it were, the Crown, doesn't need to give back the credit back to the creditors, because the Crown is the debtor. Yeah, so they create figureheads. And the song that they came up with is this. On the time of Jubilee. Jubilee is the time of forgiveness of debt. But the debtor is asking for forgiveness. But the general public believe it's the creditor. God save the Queen. God save the Queen.
Mm-hmm.
And her fascist regime.
Fascist regime.
So they basically asked, their fiction God to forgive and save the Queen, which is the Crown. The woman itself has got nothing to do with anything. It's the Crown. The Crown of City of London that have taken so much credit and don't want to give it back. So they, through hypnosis and through verbal contract, he got the general public to forgive the debts of the principalities, of the City of London, the bankers, and therefore the creditors, which is the public, will never become beneficiaries of their own credit that they gave. And that's the reversing of the roles that they do. How pernicious is this man and this group now that you've understood them for what they are? And yet they are heralded as great, changes in history. And that the businessman, so-called businessman, Richard Branson, is anybody that knows anything about business. He doesn't know anything about business. He's living on the securities, which is the credit of the nation, by role reversal. The person that's being raped is now being accused of being the rapist. God save the Queen and the fascist regime. It is the creditor, out of verbal contract, has now forgiven the sins, the debts of the people that perpetrated the crime in City of London, Washington, D.C., and in all of these places.
Wow.
The fact that I'm able to perform such iconoclastic operations upon their mythologies and through their brainwashing tells you you're living in a golden age of knowledge where the lies cannot perpetrate your spirit anymore. David Wayne Miller broke the language code, thereby setting every single man and woman on this planet that has the knowledge to be able to set themselves free. And those ones that lie and cheat, just like the Crown, just like Richard Branson, just like Warren Buffett, and just like all of these people that are living off your security, they're no longer going to get away with it. Because by me verbalizing this and transmitting this through the internet, through the ether, into the minds of the human beings, into the species of the many colors, the many psychological types, I have broken, just like David Wayne Miller, just like you, the spell that Australia has cast over the people of Terra Australis, just as the shadow that the Washington, D.C. shadowed over the American peoples, that has been broken. The caste has been broken. The iconoclastic operation is now spreading like wildfire about the land registry, Terra Australia, Washington, D.C., the language, and we've been successfully birthed into this golden age, Corona period.